Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I'm sitting down with my guest, Tana Kramer, who is the owner of TK Solutions. So excited to be jumping in. Tana, first of all, thank you for taking the time and actually being here and kind of going through this with us today. Why don't we just start with a little bit of background? For the audience that hasn't heard of TK Solutions, tell us a little bit about what y'all do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I started this business about 5 years ago, and I really love working with the small business. I we do that through the financial lens. So TK Solutions is we do bookkeeping, we do a little bit of tax prep. I've got an enrolled agent who does that. What I really, really love to do is focus on the profitability of the business. And I do that through not only providing some level of bookkeeping support, because that's always the starting point, but from there, really focusing on some strategic consulting. And I work with women business owners in the women's empowerment space for the most part, a little bit of wellness, to build out structure in their finances through decision-making tools and just general support so that they scale profitably. So I want people to make money so they can do fun things with their money
Ooh, I love that a lot.
in and out of the business.
That is awesome. So it started 5 years ago. Kind of what led you down this path? Why start this business? Why go into this industry? Like, were you in the industry beforehand and then decided to be a part of this? Kind of what was just like high level? What was the journey?
So out of college, I got a management degree, and I was like, "What does that even mean?" But I worked in what they call industry. So I worked for entrepreneurs who had shiny object syndrome. Worked for a couple of an apparel company. Worked for a concrete mixing company. That was weird, but I got a really good base of the accounting skills that I needed. And then I started working for Rachel and Dave Hollis. I don't know. Sometimes people know who they are. Sometimes they don't. But she was scaling at the time events, all sorts of stuff. And I really loved working with them. But what I realized kind of early on is I really love working in the like a somewhat smaller space. So like 1 to 5 million in revenue is really where like the sweet spot where my like excitement over what the complexity of the accounting, but also still being able to be nimble enough to not have like layers and layers of management. So I decided that like, okay, I want to be able to stay with these business owners that are kind of in this space where my like skill set is really highlighted and I can make a real big impact. And so I left that role to start my own business so that I had a little more control over like who I was working with. And when it got to well-oiled machine, I have a tendency to get a little itchy. So I really did it to be like, I want to be able to help people in that space. And then when they get to the point where they're like, everything's good, then I can get them to, again, in this case, my bookkeeping team or to other referral partners. And then I can be invited back as often as necessary when, they want to do something new or, when like if things fall off the rails, like I'll, jump back in. But I wanted to have a lot of flexibility and be able to be impactful with business owners.
That's so cool. So looking at that transition then, what was that like? Going from kind of working for somebody else to starting your own business, I'm sure there's a lot of emotions, positive
Oh,
and maybe not as positive,
mhm.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Kind of what was your experience? Like how did you make that leap and kind of what was that feeling like for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I worked for them for another full year. And because, while I was scaling and growing my business, so while I was like building a website and, doing all the things, so that I had that full-time income while I was building, because I think that's super important. And sometimes people get excited and they just quit their job and then they're like, oh my gosh, where are the sales? And so I did not do that. I stayed working for them for a year while I built things out. And then irony, I was like, hey guys, seriously, I'm really leaving. I'm going to go do this. And so my last day with them was February 28th of 2020. And so I was ready to like hit the ground running, the networking and the lunches and all the things. And guess what happened? Yeah, there was a pandemic and all of that ceased. And Austin was like a ghost town.
Hmm.
So I had always wanted the business to be virtual. So that was really important to me because I wanted to be able to have freedom and do what I want, and which you'll see as a theme. And so I leaned into virtual. So there was a bit of like panic when I realized, oh, of all those things I thought I was going to get to do, not so much. But I just figured it out. Like I said, I always wanted it to be virtual. So I didn't have to be like convinced that I could do work virtually and that I could still create connection with, business owners and their teams through Zoom. But definitely, there was no other choice. So I'm glad I was already sold because there was definitely a little bit of panic, but we worked through it, and here we are 5 or 6 years later, and I can go to things, but sometimes I'm like, well, there's a lot of drive time. Why would I do the drive time? So
It's amazing how like that really accelerated this, like, oh, it's
mhm.
actually okay to do, more things, from this virtual standpoint. It's really kind of cool to see that there.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of your role in the business. So obviously you've been in business for 5 years now.
Mhm.
I imagine there's kind of been some adjustments and changes as you continue to grow and develop and things like that. But kind of which hats do you wear in the business? What does your role look like today?
Sure. Well, starting out, I did everything because it was just me. And then I slowly invited people in to help me. And so I hired a bookkeeper, then I hired a junior bookkeeper, then I hired a senior bookkeeper, then I hired the tax preparer who's an enrolled agent. Most recently, I hired an online business manager who is saving my ass. I hope you're allowed to swear on here because I just said that. If not, take it out. But yeah, I hired an online business manager who has put a VA in place. And so I get to like focus on meeting with clients, and I get to focus on a lot of like project work, whereas the routine bookkeeping is all handled by the team and a couple of referral partners that we have. So, I get to focus on some of the CEO responsibilities. I obviously am still my own CFO because why would I have somebody else do that? That'd be weird. And so I am really focused on two things: making sure my team is taken care of, well loved, and they like what they're doing and have what they need, and working with directly with clients, because again, that's the piece that ultimately lights me up.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about your client base. I know you've kind of talked a little bit from who you primarily serve, that sort of thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
always like to ask that question of like, who generally speaking does your business serve the best? And the way that I like to frame is like, if I'm in the audience and I'm watching this later on, how would I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm a really good fit for you and your team, or I might know somebody that I should be referring over to you?
Absolutely. I would say that typically I work with women business owners. I totally have been, and I love them, but I would say that I'm much more drawn to women business owners because I want to elevate women. That's just part of what I do. And so you're maybe in the wellness space, or maybe you're doing events. You've got digital courses. Maybe you're a coach, and you're like, okay, great. I'm doing this. I'm getting the traction that I need, but I need somebody else who can stand next to me and help me figure out some of the decision making tools that I need. Or a lot of times, it's you can't talk to your team about everything, especially like money, right? You can't tell them, hey, things are getting a little scary, or yes, I want to take this jump, but is it the right jump? So somebody who is looking for some of that support, I often operate as like a safe place to have some of the conversations about, can I afford to do this? Should I do this? What does it cost? What are the levers that I can pull to make this thing happen? So if you're somebody who is looking to scale and scale profitably, and you need some structure around that, definitely we should chat.
Beautiful. Well, I heard you earlier mention kind of that general range of that 1 to 5 million
Mm-hmm.
in revenue. You at the very beginning mentioned some very big things on actually hitting profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about kind of these businesses that are around that first couple million maybe in revenue. What do you see from a financial aspect that if I'm a business around that same size, I should be like definitely paying attention to? That what were some of the things that you see with that type of business client as they continue to grow?
Yeah. Well, I see a couple things. So sometimes I see people who are pretending that they don't have to do anything but taxes, and they are not necessarily looking at any of their reporting whatsoever. And I'm like, we have to be looking at that more often than taxes. Like, or they like don't have or maybe they just have a bookkeeper and they don't even understand what any sort of like strategic or higher level consulting is about. And so I typically, the first place we start is like, let's get your bookkeeping in. Well, first thing is let me talk to you and figure out what your goals are, because obviously that is going to inform everything else that I do, right? Are you looking to grow to, 5 and 10 million? Are you looking to just have a lifestyle business? Because both are okay. But which are you actually looking for? And then let's build sort of your systems around that. And then I get the bookkeeping in order. Like, we got to make sure that we are talking about good data as we pull levers on making decisions. Got to have that really, really tight. And then the next thing I really like to work on is cash flow forecasts, because nothing gets a business out of money faster than running out of cash. So I think that people like underestimate the need for like looking out 13 weeks and being like, hey, do I have any shortfalls? Do I need to like time the spending of this or that differently? And so really being able to do that. And then the other thing is, where are you headed? So if you want to do a big event, we should probably greenlight the event with a like a budget. Like, what are we looking to spend? Because it gets so exciting to be like, oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that. And then realize that you ate up all of your margin in, oh, let's do this and let's create the experience. So you've always got to kind of balance the ideal experience or what you want with how much money do you want to be able to reinvest in your business? How much money do you want to take home to like go on vacation or, buy groceries, depending on who you are.
Mm. I so much aligned and agree with everything you just said. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
business owner watching this, please go back and like listen and watch all of that through again. I will tell you, we've learned some of the lessons and have the scars from the things that we weren't doing that we should have,
Mm-hmm.
from like, bookkeeping records that just weren't done right and they were
Yeah.
inaccurate. We're making decisions on inaccurate things or not having a cash flow forecast. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
have that in place for, the next quarter, that sort of thing, way easier to make
Mm-hmm.
effective decisions in the business. So
Yeah. It becomes so
absolutely.
black and white when you see the data. You're like, oh, I wanted to do it here. That's unwise. I need to do it here instead. Or,
Yes.
well, great news. I can do it earlier as long as I also hold the phone on something else, right? Like, it's all just a matter of choices. And so informed choices are wise choices.
Yes, 100% agree. So talk to me a little bit about how you get in front of these clients. So especially for the demographics that you work with, like what's been
Mm-hmm.
working for marketing? I always love, a little bit of discussion around marketing. It's one of those areas that
Sure.
it's important for every business owner, but not always the easiest one to crack. So what have you seen that has worked for your business to get in front of the right types of clients versus maybe some lessons learned of things like, we tried this and that did not work for us. But what can you talk about from that aspect of the business?
Well, I would say that marketing has probably been the weakest part of my business, in that I almost everything I've done up until this point has been referral based. So
Mm.
I love people, I do good work, and they usually share that with others. And then I would say the other thing that I do a lot of is networking. Again, I love a good video call. Got a couple of networking groups that I'm a part of, almost all virtual, which does make them a little bit more location independent. So I laugh and I'm like, I don't have enough Austin clients. How do I work in like an amazing place and not actually tap in enough to the Austin folks? But because of that, like, I there's been some wins and some less so wins, right? Whereas sometimes when the referrals are coming and they're not always a great fit, but you take them because you like love what the person is doing, or you can really because I like variety, I can get sold on like, oh, that's exciting. Let's dig in. Let's learn that industry I know nothing about. So that I would say can be a pitfall. And so one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm working with an online business manager who is got a marketing focus. And so we are actually building out like a true marketing strategy. How exciting. We just started posting on social media, and maybe things besides like what holiday it is. We're really leaning into that. And so that's a fun new thing that we're doing. I can't wait to see what that looks like. But the goal is that it ultimately results in a little bit more project based work where I'm going in, getting a business set up in the way that I think that they should, and ultimately that the business owner wants to get them to the next place, and spend a little bit less time doing the recurring bookkeeping work as
Mm.
as a team.
Very cool. So as
So
a
yeah.
financially minded person starting to test
Mhm.
out some new kind of marketing channels that we haven't done in the past,
Mhm.
do you kind of set aside and say, here's kind of my test budget to ensure that this is working before scaling it, or kind of how do you approach that new test into a new strategy?
Yeah, 100%. Here's like, first before we even start talking about like spending any money on that, I definitely have like here's the amount that I think that I am going to need to spend, always with some like low, medium, high, because things always cost more than you think they're going to. At least that's my experience. And then after that, like there's always iterations, right? So like here's phase one. This is what we're going to spend in phase one. We're actually heading into phase two. And so I've got a budget for phase two, and then always tracking against, okay, that's what we thought it was going to be. Did we get the results we were looking for? How can we, increase those results? And then in phase three, are we ready to turn things up or not, or do we need to revisit? So yeah, definitely a structure of like build something out, compare it and see if that's actually how it goes, and then iterate from there.
Beautiful. Any lessons learned in terms of things that did not work in marketing? It could be a strategy, it could just be a mindset or a thought or a way of doing things. But any, like, as you look back at the last 5 years, anything that you can kind of say, hey, if you can avoid this mistake, here's one to look out for.
I would say that this goes beyond marketing, but definitely true for marketing is hiring the right people who know what they're doing is really, really important. Because I've hired some other folks, and I'm like, oh, they were great, and I enjoyed them, but they weren't necessarily able to move the needle with me in the way that I needed them to. So hiring like the right like skill set and fit, super important. You can save a lot of time and money by doing that right on the front end.
As someone that's maybe especially in marketing, because I know that there's a lot of folks out there that you can choose to hire from a marketing standpoint. It can be hard to maybe cut through some of the noise. Um, do you have any kind of tips or kind of a system that you follow to ensure that those that you do choose to hire do fit the criteria and do know what they're talking about and can show results and things like that? But anything that you can give kind of advice wise there?
Well, I would say that that is something I'm still working on, which is full transparency, still working on. But I think that skills and fit have to have equal weight. And I think that I probably enjoyed people more, and didn't necessarily have the right mechanism for testing their skills. And that's something that I'm definitely working
Nice. I love that.
on.
Um, well, we've talked a lot about kind of where the business is, all that kind of stuff today, but
Yeah.
where's it going? If you cast the vision out for the next three to
Mm.
five years, what are you excited about? Where are you taking this business over the next handful of years here?
Well, I would say twofold. So my husband and I just launched our last kid. And so we are heading into what I'm calling adult 2.0, where the business is, like I said, the business is in a good place, and we're getting to the kind of well-oiled machine just in our business, which is super exciting. And we are taking the show on the road. So we bought an RV at the end of April, currently standing in it, and we put our condo on the market, and we are going to drive all over the United States for the next 2 years, meeting people in campgrounds at beautiful places, and getting to experience some of the world, all while working. So I'm calling this like a workation, meaning we're not on vacation for the next 2 years. That's not what I mean. I love to work. Like I can remember when the kids were small, I was like, I am not a stay-at-home mom. I need to have my brain functioning. I need to be like into a project and solving problems. So I'm going to continue to do that through the lens of travel, and hope that I meet a lot of great people along the way. And then as far as like specifically the business, I am really looking forward to, again, I think I mentioned this a minute ago, like project level work. So let's spend 90 days getting you in the right place. And then when you get to well-oiled machine, I have referral partners, or again, potentially the team, to help with that kind of month end close all of the time. But anytime that, somebody wants to start a new business line, or they're looking to let go of something, like I'm looking to help that decision making support on a project basis. So, and then growing the tax business. My husband is in year 4 as an enrolled agent, and so growing the tax business is a key piece for us as well.
Very cool. Any thoughts on like further down the road? Is this a business that you'll look to exit as selling? Is it something you'll want to pass down one day? Any kind of thoughts on like long-term future of the business overall?
Well, my kids are not at all interested in this business. Yeah, they're not at all. My daughter's, she actually does work for us, but she is in school looking to be a civil engineer. So pass down, no. I wouldn't, I mean, I love working. Truth be told, I love working. So as long as I can work and play at the same time, I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can. I don't have any big exit goals because I love what I do. And I do this because I love it and because of the connection that I make with business owners. So that's not something I'm looking to get out of. But I 100% care about being able to like ramp it up and ramp it down based on what's happening in my life. And so, yeah, I think that's a perfect mix of loving what you do and loving to do things that are not work.
I love that. So I know we've covered a ton of ground on a bunch of different topics, but I always like to kind of bring it together and do a little bit of kind of rapid fire questions as we start to kind of come into the end of the conversation here. Really just pull out some wisdom nuggets for the audience. So I think I've got like four of them here in total. The first one, when you look at kind of your journey overall, the past 5 years in building this business, plus kind of the experience beforehand, what would you say for you has been kind of your key to success?
Key to success is definitely persistence and flexibility. So not being too attached to the outcome, but willing to like do the work to figure out what's going to light me up or get me to the next place.
That's
100%.
very cool. How about advice? If you could leave just one piece of advice for other entrepreneurs or other business owners out there today, what piece of advice would you want to give them?
Um, Perfection is not real, and you will iterate always. So you do not have to get it all right in the beginning because right is real relative because everything is constantly changing.
I like that. Very cool. I just had to make sure I wrote that one down. Um, how about book recommendations? And this can be book, can be audiobook, can be, if you're not a big reader,
Yeah.
podcast or something else that you want to recommend. But if you could leave the audience a book recommendation, what would you want to leave them with?
Well, learning forever is definitely a motto of mine. One of the things that I'm actually listening to kind of on the regular just to keep my business focused is 10x is better than 2x by Benjamin Hardy with uh, oh man, Dan, I can't remember Dan's last name. No, that's too sad. But yeah, 10x is better than 2x because it helps you focus decision making. So I have a task that says every month, listen to chapter 3, just as a grounding to, you know, make good decisions, make decisions that are moving the needle. Don't get
Ooh.
stuck in things that are outside your unique ability.
Oh man, I love that so much. It's also, I'll jump on that for just a moment.
Mhm.
I think for a long time, at least me personally, I had this mindset, this idea that I always had to look for the next thing to read or listen to, and I didn't spend
Mhm.
enough time coming back and either listening to or rereading either parts of the books I've read before or like fully rereading a few every year. And I've really taken into that this next year. It's so powerful because the each time you listen or read through something, one, you
You're
mentioned the
different.
grounding to you, right? And then,
Yep.
yeah, we as individuals continue to grow and it hits differently because we've
Mhm.
gone through different experiences. So I
Yep.
absolutely love that.
Yeah,
Um,
integration is key, right? It's one thing to know or think you know or have had exposure to. It is completely something different to like actually take it into who you are and make decisions from that.
100% agree. All right, one more rapid fire question. We'll kind of get to our final wrap up. And this one's just kind of fun. If you could choose just one area in your business today and you could sprinkle a little bit of magic dust on it, but the key here is you only get to choose one spot. If you could choose a little bit, choose that spot, put a little bit of magic dust on it, wake up tomorrow, it's like 10 times better than it is today. Where would you choose to put that magic dust?
I would put the magic dust in um, building out the projects for the next 90 days. Um, because I am like, because this season has been like about RV fun and some other graduating a kid, I'm like ready to get to the next project that will fuel me and make a difference in a business owner's life. So I'm looking for that next kind of big one because, like I said, we got recurring clients, we've got some other fun stuff, but like I'm feeling tingly about the next project. So
Very cool. So before we get into the question, I always like to just end these conversations on, for those in the audience that want to learn more about you, to follow some of the amazing things that you do, or maybe just connect and ask questions, anything else like that, where can we advise them to go for more information?
absolutely. Well, definitely the website. So www.tksolutions.co. No M on that, just .co. Or people can reach out via email at tana@tksolutions.co. And like I said, we're starting social media. Like we are kind of we're ramping that up. So specifically on Instagram at TK, it's TK underscore solutions underscore co. So that's a place where we're doing fun stuff. So that'd be another place to sort of take a peek, see if you're into it or not.
Very cool. Well, I'll be sure to put all of that in the video description below so y'all have access to it. Highly recommend it, especially with email and everything there. Send Ton an email. Just say, hey, saw you in the business
Absolutely.
spotlight. Amazing conversation. Make
Mhm.
those connections there because I think that's one of the coolest things about this particular series with business spotlight is making some connections. So, um,
Absolutely.
Tana, the final question I have for you today is, what is most inspiring to you today?
The most inspiring thing to me, honestly, is making connections with people and seeing where that goes. Because maybe you have your new best friend, maybe you have a great client, maybe you have somebody that you get to introduce them to. So connection is always the thing that like lights me up.
Oof, I love that. Tana, I want to say thank you again for taking the time. This has been a pleasure. I'm sure, had we had, 2 hours together, I could really dive into even more. So I highly encourage everyone who's watching to go back, rewatch some of the golden nuggets from this year, reach out, say hi, all of that kind of stuff. And just once again, I want to say thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.